Hello everyone, welcome to another video. So recently I did a alternator change on a 2007 Honda Jazz. I didn't film the job, partly because I was a bit too busy, also partly because I did actually look on YouTube and I did see a couple of other videos that seemed to explain the job pretty well. So generally speaking, that is what I tend to do before making a video. I'll look what's already on there. If there's other decent or fairly decent videos on there, unless I can add something new, I generally won't make a video because I don't see the point of like just replicating information that's already out there. So for that reason I didn't make a video, but having done the job, I do think there's a few things that would have been well worth mentioning that weren't in the other videos, and I'm just quickly going to talk about those in this video. So it's going to be a quick tip kind of video, if you like, for somebody who might be doing an alternator change on a Honda Jazz, but also I think some of what I'm going to talk about might sort of help for, like, you know, doing an alternator diag or replacement on another car, or maybe even just some general generally in terms of car repairs. You know, I think some of what I'm going to talk about might be helpful. So that's what we're going to do in this video. So right, so I'll get it straight on with it, I suppose. So first of all, in terms of taking the alternator out, now I'm guessing if you're watching this, you probably watched some of the other videos, or you will know that the EGR valve sits on top of the alternator, and before you can get it out you need to take off the EGR valve, and the EGR valve is held in place by two studs, and even though you can just take the EGR valve off those studs before you can take the alternator out, you do need to take those studs out as well. Now, in the other videos, it says that you can take those studs out by using the old trick of like locking two bolts together on the stud, and then using those to effectively drive out the stud. Now, I'm guessing if you live somewhere where the weather's sort of like nice and hot all year round, and you know the cars corrode very little, then great, that might work. I think if you live somewhere like the UK or the northern parts of the States, where you know you get cold, damp weather in the winter, and particularly if they salt the roads in the winter, that and particularly obviously also considering that these cars are getting old now, or you know if it is an older car, I don't think you're going to get those studs out using that method. I certainly wasn't able to, so I had to use a stud removal tool. Now actually I haven't got one of these myself, so because it's not something I need very often, so I actually borrowed one and I've already returned it, but I'm just going to overlay some pictures over the video now so you can see what it looks like. So this is what they look like. I think they're called stud removal tools. That's what I know them as. There'll probably be a bit of a technique to using them, but I'm sure there'll be videos on YouTube explaining to do that. But I was actually very surprised and impressed how quickly one of those remove those studs. They're really good, and a good thing to know if you're not already familiar for other repair jobs where you might need to remove a stud as well. So you know, stud removal tool. That's tip number one. Tip number two, when it comes to putting the alternator back in, especially if you're fitting a second-hand one, not a new one like I did. I replaced it with a second-hand one. What you will probably find is when you try to fit the alternator over the bracket, you will probably find that you won't be able to do so. The reason being is because you will probably need to like reset this metal bushing here. And what I mean by reset is you need to kind of like bang it back in this direction a little bit. And the way I did that, I supported this bit like that just a little bit, just to make sure I didn't break anything. And then, so it was in roughly that kind of arrangement. And then I used a blunt chisel and a hammer just to basically knock this metal bushing back this way. That way, you know that you then have clearance to fit this over the bracket, and obviously when you put the new bolt in and tighten it up, this metal bushing will move back this way a little bit, and I tighten back up on the bracket. So that's tip number 2. If you're fitting it might actually apply to fitting a new one as well. I suppose it will kind of depend on where they've left this bushing, but it's definitely, I think if you're fitting a second-hand one, you will need to reset this bushing. So that's tip number 2, which again wasn't mentioned in the other videos, that I think will be helpful. So now I'm just going to quickly just run through some of the testing I did. So first of all, using the voltmeter, I went onto the posts of the battery terminals, and I indeed confirmed that there was no charge getting to the battery. It was just reading 11.8 volts, just a charge on the battery. Then I took the positive lead from the voltmeter, touched it onto the post again of the alternator, the big battery post, and again the reading was just battery voltage, so that confirmed that cable from the alternator to the battery positive post wasn't the problem. And then finally I went to the alternator case, and in this case we read 0, which confirmed that it wasn't a problem on the negative side of the electrical connections either. Okay, so having established that the alternator was indeed not charging, what I wanted to do next was to confirm that it was indeed getting switched on. So then I turned my attention to this connector here, all the wires going into this connector here. There's 4 of them in total. Now, excuse my writing, I did this for my own benefit, basically, because like I said, I wasn't intentionally intending to make a video. Now you've got four wires and connectors going into this connector here. Now pin 1, which you can identify as being yellow and black, that's basically the main power to the alternator. So that needs to be 12 volts, either with the ignition just switched on or with the car running. So you need to verify that. Actually, I'm just pointing to that top corner one. I can't remember which orientation the connector sat in there, but you'll know that from the wire colors going into the connector. So I'm just randomly pointing, basically, just to be clear. But anyway, but the yellow and black wire, basically, that's your pin 1, and that needs to be 12 volts, either just ignition on or with the engine running. Then the pin 2, which is white and green, that is the wire that controls the alternator light on your display. Now on some cars, as well as controlling the alternator light, that can actually be involved in switching the alternator on as well. So that again, that does need to be good. That connection, that wire does need to be good. But if you, sorry, did I say green and white? I said green and white, and sorry, I was looking at the wrong one, guys. It's pin 3, white and blue is what I meant. My apologies. So pin 3, white and blue is the wire and connector that goes to the light on the instrument panel. So like I was just saying, it does need to be good. You need to verify that it is good. But if your light is switching on, if your alternator light is coming on, that means that wire and connection is good. So that's the check for that one, basically. Now the other 2, pin 4 and pin 2, which is white and red and white and green, I think, from my notes. Those are basically involved in monitoring and controlling the smart functionality of this type of system, if you like. Now I was not able to find any data or information on what I should be seeing on these two terminals for testing purposes. I could not find a known good, known bad, whatever. The only information I was able to find is one of them is field return for idle up, whatever that means really, and then the other one, possible ECM control, is what I've said, and somebody said you need to cut that if you want to make the alternator perform like a standard alternator. But you know, I don't recommend cutting anything. So but what I'm trying to say is I was not able to find any data on those two. So what I thought was, well, maybe the scan tool might help me. I thought, so I plugged in the Think Diag, and I pulled up from the data stream. I pulled up anything that related to the alternator control, battery voltage, all that sort of stuff. Now again, I'll overlay a picture over on top of what I'm speaking about, but these are the data PIDs that I managed to find. I think there's 4 or 5 from memory. Oops, sorry, is that still filming? Sorry, I just had a battery warning flash on my phone, but I think we're still good. So yeah, so the 4 or 5 data PIDs, whatever they are, you'll be able to see them because I would have overlaid the picture. Now, as you can see, 11.8 volts. I think it says on the alternator. This is with the engine running. I'm doing this. So obviously alternator's not being charging, but then it says alternator command 20%. And I thought to myself, well, why is that only at 20%? Why is that not going higher? 21%, I think, isn't it? Why is that not going higher? And then I tried switching on things like lights and like the blower and stuff, and it was still just at 21%. And I'm thinking, why is that not going higher? You know, is there a problem with the way the ECM is controlling this alternator? Is it maybe not an alternator fault? So I was in two minds there what to do. But just as a gut feeling, I thought to myself, I thought, well, it is getting commanded at 20%, but the alternator is not switching on at all. I thought maybe actually what the PCM is doing is, I thought maybe it's realized that there's a fault with the alternator. Is that 20% is just a default kind of value, and it's like stopped controlling it any further than that, or trying to control it any further than that, because it's realized that there's a fault with it. That was my gut feeling. I wasn't sure, but I just had that as a gut feeling. So based on that, I did go ahead and change the alternator, and you know, I'm pleased to say that it did indeed fix it. And then just as a comparison, as a before or after, I did the same test again, and now you should see the second overlay onto the screen here. And now, as you can see, we got a higher voltage. We're at 14 something volts or whatever, and the alternator with the engine just at idle is being commanded at 37%. And I can confirm that now with the new alternator in, that reading would go up if you say put the lights on or put the blower on, or if you put everything on, that you could make that percentage rise. So I suppose my final tip from a testing point of view is, you know, if you go through the same process and you're thinking, maybe is this alternator not being commanded on, is there something wrong with my PCM or whatever? No, if you've done all the other tests and you're seeing what you're seeing, there's a good chance that your PCM has just simply stopped trying to control the alternator, because it has realized that there is indeed something wrong with it. So that's my final tip. So that's it, guys. I'm going to leave it there. Like I said, hope it's useful, hope it's helpful, and I will catch you guys on the next video soon, I hope. Bye bye.